Hello, I'm Raider Pilot Steve, and this is my review of the Shuttleworth Festival of Flight 2025, which took place at Old Warden Aerodrome, home of the Shuttleworth Collection. The event took place over 2 days compared to the collection's usual events and celebrated all things flight. This was also the second Shuttleworth event to split its flying programme into a daytime section and an evening section. The event showcased a large variety of the Shuttleworth Collection aircraft over the weekend, as well as many visiting aircraft, including some UK airshow debuts. Both Saturday and Sunday edition of the shows were very different to each other, and I will therefore do this video slightly differently than usual. I will cover the daytime shows together so as not to repeat myself too much, but will cover each evening section separately due to how different they were. The weather for both days was very sunny with blue and cloudy skies. Saturday did suffer from some strong winds which did curtail several lighter aircraft in the flying display. Sunday, however, was a lot calmer, which led to a truly unforgettable evening display that day. The main hangars were open to visitors to view the non-flying exhibits and museum pieces. Several of the visiting aircraft were placed in the hangars over the weekend. Saturday saw Lillehammer Aviation's Casa 133C Youngmeister and Steam Jones's newly restored de Havilland DH-83C Foxmoth present within the hangars, although both would fly the next day. On Sunday, David Bremner's Bristol Scout C replica was on display, having not been able to fly the previous day. Visitors were once again able to take a flight in a vintage aircraft. T6 Harvard Aviation brought along their CCF T6 Harvard Mark IV-M Wacky Wabbit, and Scalonia Airways had brought along their beautiful de Havilland DH-89A Dragon Rapide. The showground displayed several debutantes on static display. First was the Junkers A50 Junior replica, which was brought over by Junkers Aircraft. This is a modern reproduction of the original A50, but powered by a more powerful engine. There was also the Newport 23C1 replica from the Newport Memorial Flyers in Switzerland. This was displayed outside in the showground on Saturday, where the winds were too strong for it to fly, but was moved to the main hangars on Sunday prior to its evening display slot. Strong winds on Saturday led to quite a few aircraft operated by the Shuttleworth Collection to not fly, but were viewable along the main flight line, including the Avro 504K, the de Havilland DH-51 Miss Kenya, the de Havilland DH-60 Cirrus Moth, the de Havilland DH-60X Hermes Moth, and the Sopwith Pup. The Blackburn B2 and the Percival P56 Provost T1 were also unable to perform due to technical difficulties. The Festival of Flight also attracted many other visitors over the weekend, including several vintage types, including an Auster J1 Autocrat that was featured in the period detective drama Father Brown, a tricycle undercarriage Beechcraft Model H18, a Booker BU133C Youngmeister in Swiss markings, a de Havilland DH82A Tiger Moth 2, a de Havilland DH82B Queen Bee operated by the Beekeepers Flying Group, a de Havilland DH85 Leopard Moth, a de Havilland Canada DHC1 Chipmunk T10 from the Henlow Chipmunk Group. This particular chipmunk was used to teach King Charles how to fly. There was also a lot of general aviation aircraft visiting the show, including an Aeropro Eurofox 912IS, a CEA Jodel DR221 Dolphin, a Europa XS, an Evector EV97 Eurostar, a Grob G109B, a P&M Aviation Pulsar, a Piper 18 Super Cub, a Piper PA28 Cherokee C, a Piper PA28 Archer II owned by Golden Lion Aviation Limited and painted in British Caledonian colours, a Rockwell Commander 112B, a Schleicher ASK-16, a Vans RV7, a Vans RV8, and a Wolf W11 Boredom Fighter. which is a kit-built biplane designed to resemble the World War I fighter, the SPAD S-13. The show was opened on Saturday with a single flypast by one of the Royal Air Force's Boeing Chinook HC-6As. This was followed by some vintage aerobatics courtesy of Christoph Simon in his striking Mudry Cap 10B, who put on an incredibly nimble and entertaining display. With the Cap 10 on the ground, there was the arrival of a Royal Air Force Airbus Helicopters Juno HT-1, which was dropping off Red 10, the Red Arrows' commentator. Aerobatics also kicked off Sunday's programme with a very graceful demonstration by Bob Grimstead in his Fournier RF-4D motor glider. The display was further enhanced by the wingtip-mounted smoke generators. The RF-4D then made way for a very different glider in the form of the Slingspeed T-21B Sedba TX-1, which descended by performing a series of loops and banked turns. The glider was brought up to height by the Shuttleworth Collection's Piper PA-18 Super Cub. The Battle of Britain Memorial Flight performed displays on both days of the show. Saturday saw the Avro Lancaster B1 return to Old Warden with an incredible display, made more poignant with zero commentary to allow the 4 Merlin engines to do the talking. On Sunday, the flight sent over their Supermarine Spitfire PR-19 and Hawker Hurricane Mark IIC for a pairs display in the latter half of the show. Both these fighters were each one of the 4 founding aircraft of the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, and the Spitfire is now painted in its original scheme. Sunday also had some additional representation of Soviet-era aircraft in the form of Bob Davies' Yakovlev Yak-3 UPW replica. This aircraft is currently painted in Ukrainian markings due to the recent actions of Russia against Ukraine. Next on Saturday was some locally based aerobatics courtesy of the seldom seen Pitt duo. The team fly a pair of Pitt Specials, an S1S with the larger S2AE, and performed a series of formation manoeuvres as well as some solo aerobatics. Vintage airshow action was represented on Sunday with the Shuttleworth Collection's Tied Together trio, which featured the Parnell Elf, the de Havilland DH-60X Hermes Moth, and the de Havilland DH-82A Tiger Moth II. The formation started their display mostly tied together by bunting before splitting apart at Crowd Centre for a tail chase sequence. Saturday then had a monoplane training segment, starting with a formation display by a pair of Miles M14A Magister 1s, operated by the Shuttleworth Collection and David Bramwell. Next was an aerobatic display by the Shuttleworth Collection's Canadian-marked de Havilland Canada Chipmunk T10. This was followed by the UK's best, the Royal Air Force aerobatic team, the Red Arrows, with their full contingent of 9 BAE Hawk T-1As. The team flew an exciting display full of varied formations and dynamic aerobatic manoeuvres, despite the restrictions in place due to the relatively small display window of Old Warden. The Red Arrows have improved massively in the last few seasons, with 2025 being one of their best, in my opinion. The aircraft restoration company's Bristol Blenheim Mark 1F flew on both days of the show, but with different display partners on each day. Saturday saw the twin-engine fighter paired with the Shuttleworth Collection Supermarine Spitfire LF-5C for a series of formation passes before performing their own routines. The Bristol Mercury engine was the focus on Sunday, which saw the Blenheim lead several formations with the Shuttleworth Collection's Gloucester Gladiator Mark I and Western Lysander Mark IIIA prior to their individual displays. Carriages of the Sky was another display theme showcased on Sunday, with Steve Jones's newly restored de Havilland DH-83C Foxmoth, alongside the Shuttleworth Collection's DeSauter Mark I and Southern Martlet, which flew a gentle series of loose formations and circuits. One of the rarer items due to display was the Dassault MD-312 Flamand from Amical Alonsones d'Avion. with this particular aircraft making its UK airshow debut. This also marks the first time a Flamand has displayed in the UK since 2013 and the first to display at Old Warden since the 1990s. This French transport aircraft performed an entertaining, if somewhat high, solo display on the Sunday. Aircraft of World War I were well represented on Sunday by a trio of replicas based here at Old Warden. First up was a privately owned Sopwith Dove replica, which is a development of the Sopwith Pup fighter. Next was the Shuttleworth Collection Sopwith triplane replica, which is marked as Dixie 2 to represent the original Dixie of No. 8 Naval Squadron. Closing this segment was the Shuttleworth Collection's Bristol M1C replica, which is marked as an aircraft that served with No. 72 Squadron. There was also a display focused on training aircraft of the 30s and 40s on Saturday's show. This featured Arnaldo Leon's Ryan STA, Stu Goldspink's Stump SV4A, and the Shuttleworth Collection's Polycarpov PO2, performing a series of mixed formations, flypasts and tail chases. There was further representation of Russian aviation on Sunday with an excellent performance by the Duxford-based display team, the Flying Comrades, who are making their first display at Old Warden. The team consists of a Yakovlev Yak-18T and a pair of Yakovlev's Yak-52s. The display was very exhilarating with tight formation passes and skillful aerobatic manoeuvres, which all appeared closer than usual due to the tight confines of the airfield. The Shuttleworth Collection's de Havilland DH-88 Comet Grosvenor House was probably flown the most over the weekend, appearing on both days for the daytime and evening displays. It performed solo on the Saturday, but on Sunday was joined by the Shuttleworth Collection's Miles M2L Hawkspeed 6 for some formation flypasts before displaying solo routines. The last exclusive of the Sunday show was a delightful trio of German aircraft, including Lillehammer Aviation's Casa 133C Youngmeister, making its UK airshow debut, Richard Menage's Focke-Wulf FW44J Stieglitz, and a Nor 1002 Penguin 2. The three-axis aircraft performed some loose formation flypast before the Nord, which is a French-built version of the Messerschmitt Bf-108 Typhoon, put on a lovely solo routine. The biplanes performed further formation passes as well as some aerobatics. The closing displays of both days were identical. First, with the return of the Commemorative Air Force's Douglas R4D6S Dakota ready for duty. The twin-engine transport performed an excellent solo display as part of the extensive Navy to Victory tour, making it the furthest travel visitor to the Festival of Flight. Another UK airshow debut was the Warbird display team from Belgium, which fly the unusual pairing of CAC CA-13 Boomerang replica and Yakovlev Yak-3 UPW replica, and were flown by Remco Sijben and Rick van der Graaf respectively. The team put on a very exciting dogfight sequence, complete with smoke, between the two powerful warbirds, despite the unlikeliness of an Australian and Russian aircraft duking it out during World War II. This display was concluded with some brief individual solo displays by the pair of monoplane fighters. The finale to the daytime flying programme on both days came in the form of three iconic warbirds. Leading the formation was the Shuttleworth Collection Supermarine Spitfire LF-5C, alongside Lillehammer Aviation's Supermarine Spitfire LF-9C, and Flying Legends Vought F4U-5L Corsair. The trio flew in formation for a series of passes before descending into an intense tail chase before performing their own solo routines. The Spitfire LF-9C is making its UK airshow debut under new ownership and actually flew during the D-Day landings and is possibly the first Allied fighter to land in France during this time. The Corsair is also making its first appearance at Old Warden and is a veteran of the Korean War where it served with VMF 513, the Flying Nightmares. After a lengthy wait, Saturday's crowd was treated to a lovely evening of vintage flying, despite the wind changing things around significantly. This was kicked off by an Anglo-French pairing of a Dassault MD312 Flamand and the Avron Anson 19, operated by the Amica Alençonnaise d'Avion and the Shuttleworth Collection respectively. The duo performed some high formation passes before putting on their solo displays. Both these aircraft stood out brilliantly in the golden light, especially the Flamand, which is a type, as stated before, that is rarely seen in the UK. Next came a series of consecutive displays from various aircraft owned by the Shuttleworth Collection, starting with a gentle demonstration by the Dassault Mark I, which is the only one flying in the world. Following this was the pinnacle of air racing during the 1930s, the de Havilland DH-88 Comet Grosvenor House, which is a genuine racing champion. More air racing heritage came in the form of the Miles M2L Hawkspeed 6, which is the only airworthy example of a total of 3 built. Having not been able to fly earlier that day, it was great to see the Bristol F2B fighter put on a surprisingly nimble and entertaining display in the clear evening skies. Closing Saturday's evening display was 2 aircraft that we were unable to see earlier due to the bumpy wind conditions. This was the pairing of the Shuttleworth Collection's Compa CLA-7 Swift and Steve Jones's de Havilland DH-71 Tiger Moth replica, which was making its UK airshow debut. The pair flew together for some gentle formation passes before performing a sublime tail chase sequence to conclude the show. The conditions on Sunday were significantly calmer, and the show organisers shifted things around so the more delicate aircraft would display first. This was an excellent decision. First up was a debuting visitor, the Newport 23C1 replica from the Newport Memorial Flyers, which put on a lovely solo routine. This was followed by a solo performance by the Shuttleworth Collection's RAF SE-5A, a genuine World War I aircraft that served with No. 84 Squadron and shot down a Fokker D-7 on the 10th of November 1918. Due to the decision made by the organisers to shuffle the display order, all 5 of the Shuttleworth Collection's Edwardian aircraft were able to perform. This special section was kicked off by the Blériot 11, which gave 2 straight hops from either end of the airfield. This example was built in 1909 and is the world's oldest airworthy aircraft. Next was the Depot-Dussin Type A monoplane, which similarly gave 2 straight hops from either end of the airfield. This particular aircraft was built in 1910 and believed to be the 43rd example built. It is also the world's 2nd oldest airworthy aircraft. More monoplane action came courtesy of the Blackburn monoplane Type D, which gave a full display of gentle circuits. This aircraft is the oldest airworthy British aircraft powered by a British engine. The Edwardian segment was concluded by the pairing of Row 4 triplane and Bristol box kite replicas, which performed sedate passes individually and together. Both of these full-scale replicas were built in 1965 for the film Those Magnificent Men in Their Flying Machines, before being donated to the Shuttleworth Collection. Following this was the English Electric Wren, which put on a fantastic display of circuits after a long take-off distance. This was the 3rd aircraft built in 1957 out of parts from the 2nd aircraft that was used in the LIM light aircraft trials in 1923, where it would come joint first with the Anek 1 after covering 87.5 miles on 1 imperial gallon of fuel. Sunday's show and the whole event was closed by a unique formation of aircraft from the Shuttleworth Collection. These represented the most iconic aircraft of the collection and included the de Havilland DH-88 Comet Grosvenor House, the Gloucester Gladiator Mark I, the Westland Lysander Mark IIIA, and the Supermarine Spitfire LF-5C. After a single formation flypast, the 4-ship divided into 2 display sections, starting with an intense tail chase by the Gladiator and Spitfire. This was followed by the unlikely pairing of Comet and Lysander, which performed a series of fast and slow passes respectively. In conclusion, the Shuttleworth Festival of Flight 2025 was a truly fantastic weekend of vintage flying, and this only being the third iteration of the show, it has cemented itself as one of the mainstays of the UK airshow season, and I will definitely be back in 2026. It is very difficult to nail down my personal highlights, but I'll do my best. Over both days, I thought the debut display of the Boomerang and Yak 3 UPW was one of the best warbird displays I had ever seen. I also thoroughly enjoyed the pair of Spitfires with the Corsair. On Saturday's show, I felt the Red Arrows put on an excellent performance, and I was very happy to see a Flamont in the air again, alongside another favourite of mine, the Anson. For Sunday, the display I was surprised by most was the Flying Comrades, and the entire evening of that day was truly exceptional, especially having all 5 Edwardian aircraft display. If you wish to see more of my photos from this event and others, I've linked my Flickr pages in the description below. My next show will be all 3 days of the Royal International Air Tattoo. I hope you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I hope you join me in the next one. Bye!